Tats are in. Hey, welcome to Fireside Tats, the official podcast of the Tattoo Improvement Network. We're here last day at Ink and Iron, Nashville, and man, it's been fun. It's been a good show. It's like a whirlwind. There's at least 2,500 interviews. No, exaggeration probably. Yeah. Hey, go to tattooimprovement.com and sign up for our newsletter. We'll make sure to send you, photos of Scott topless, maybe big seller, yeah. We'll tweet whatever we had for breakfast every day, that kind of stuff. I have Liz Venom here, which is probably, I guess, the best name that we've had so far. We've had some good ones. I like that just as much as any. So Liz, we're just going to talk a little bit about her background, what she's doing now, what she's going to do in the future. I don't know, something like that, maybe more. What? So we've already talked a little bit before we started, so I'm going to kind of rehash some of that.
Yep.
So you've been tattooing how long again?
4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
No apprenticeship, formal apprenticeship whatsoever.
No, it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
Did you want me to tell you the story
Yeah,
again?
go through it because they didn't hear it the first time.
Yeah, I used to work in an aquarium. Like, I'm a huge fish nerd. As you can tell, I don't have many tattoos. I was just really into art, and I was working in this aquarium at the time, and this guy was complaining that his fish tank was really, really horrible, and it turns out he owned a tattoo studio, so I went around and checked it out, and all of his corals were dying. Like, it was just like botulism in a tank. It was disgusting. So I offered to fix up his fish tank and get everything running for him in turn for, like, just being allowed to hang out in the space and get a feel for it, right? And it turned out to be like this really dodgy mall shop. So they had me tattooing in 2 weeks, and if anybody asked, they were like, "Oh, you have to tell them you've been tattooing for 5 years."
Oh, wow.
From there I was there for 3 months, and then I got poached by another studio, but they didn't know how long I'd been tattooing, and I was kind of iffy on whether or not I should tell them or not.
Yeah.
So I didn't actually get any apprenticeship. I had to teach myself.
Wow, that's incredible. Especially, I mean, as this interview is going, we'll be dropping some of your work over, so they're seeing kind of some of your work. So that is, like, if you guys are seeing the work she's putting out now, and with no formal training, that's pretty impressive. How did you pick it up quickly? I mean, not just from a technical standpoint. Obviously, you could draw well, but from a technical standpoint, did you not struggle indefinitely?
There was a little bit of struggling, but honestly not that much. Like, it's just like any other medium. Like, I did a lot of art beforehand. I always loved, like, oil painting style and realism art, and I find with any new art style, it's basically just picking up the technical aspect. If you have the talent and the eye for art, it's just a new medium. It's like anything else, really.
What were your what mediums did you prefer before you started tattooing, or do you still work in other mediums?
I actually prefer pencils, but honestly only because I'm really lazy, and setting out paints takes a really long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that translates pretty. Working in pencils, at least you're making the same type of mark. It translates quickly to tattooing. So, so your style now, you and your husband or fiance own a shop.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I got that shop at that place 3 months, or not even that, after I had my start to tattooing, we'll call it that. And then, they didn't have that much work for me, so I went to this other shop, and then they turned around 9 days later and told me that they were selling it and I should go back to the first shop.
Oh, wow.
And they didn't take me leaving that well, so I was like, well, that's not an option. And then it turns out they couldn't sell it for what they wanted to, so I offered them $5,000 and they took it.
Oh, wow.
So I had been tattooing for, just on 6 months when I sort of just fell into owning this studio. Like, it was cheaper than you buy a used car.
Yeah.
So, like, who's going to say no to that?
So was that not just, like, jumping into a frying pan? Had you ever run a business before?
I worked as a bar manager before and, like, venue manager in hospitality. So running a business wasn't that hard. But, there was a lot of stuff that I hadn't anticipated that just sort of popped up. But, I don't think I would do it again, just because I don't really have the ability. Like, I think I would have learnt faster if I had the ability to go to other shops and learn off artists that I really aspire to be like. But other than that, it's not that bad.
Is your husband a tattooer as well?
Yeah.
Okay. And had he ever owned a shop or had ever?
No. He owned a hot rod shop a couple of years ago, but nothing to do with tattooing.
Okay.
Yeah, he only just sort of started recently.
Okay. What? How many artists do you have at the shop?
We have 6 now.
Oh, okay. So
yeah.
it's a decent sized shop.
Yeah.
Mostly a custom shop, or is it walk-in?
It's actually like divided directly in the center. There's myself and my good friend Erin that work up the front, and we do custom girly stuff. And then there's just a bunch of boys at the back who do a lot of trad or walk-ins. Kind of just smells like men back there.
Yeah.
We try and keep them separate.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how this really illustrative style that you kind of work in, and I was just looking through your portfolio, and the roses are beautiful. A lot of your, obviously, a lot of really bold color but soft blends, and you also a lot of strong complements and stuff like that. Did you work that way before? Is that something that's developed as you've tattooed?
Yeah, I've always worked with realism. I'm not an overly creative person when it comes to, like, if somebody was like, oh, I want like a pug with a monocle that's on fire and holding a javelin. Like, I'm not going to be able to draw that. I'm just not. But if somebody's like, oh, here's an image and I want that drawn, I can do that. That's what I work with best.
Yeah.
So from that, it was just, I really like making sure that the contrasting colors are there, because I know a lot of people will, especially like a couple of my really good friends, are going to get on my back and be like, oh, if there's not carbon around your tattoo, it's going to fall out or whatever, right? So like I like to make sure that there's enough contrast, and I can create that contrast, because I think that your tattoo should be visible from the other side of the room, and people should be able to see what it is and tell what it is. And I think there's a lot of people fall into that trap with realism where it's all gray or it's all red or it's all pink. So I always try and balance it out and get enough contrast and pop with my pieces, which I don't really care that much about with pencil art, because realistically, if it falls out, you're just going to throw it in the trash and make a new one, right?
Yeah. We've talked to a few people on this weekend about some of the really soft kind of realism that's going on now. A lot of people who are doing beautiful work, like, say, Phil Garcia, or someone that's doing these white roses, or people that are doing color realism that have 15 peaches. And there's a big question of, like, what is that going to look like in 5 or 6 years? We really haven't been doing it long enough to know, I guess. But what the approach that you're taking, really pushing that contrast, both like value contrast and color contrast, is the way to. And I like what you said about how you should really be able to read a tattoo from across the room. And I think a lot of times that gets lost. I mean, you just watch people walking around this convention, and probably 80% of the tattoos, you can't really read them from across the room.
Yeah, exactly. And also, like, I love his work. I love Phil Garcia's work, and the reason I don't strive to do those white roses is because there's probably a million people trying to bite his work, and I don't want to be one of those people.
No.
I'll stick to my red and purple.
Right. Well, I mean, and you talk about realism, that you're doing realism, but it's really a very stylized realism. You're definitely put your spin on it. It's recognizable as something that you're doing, and I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of times, you have artists that come in and they see someone like Phil that's doing beautiful work, and they're like, oh, that's the kind of stuff I want to do, and then you are trying. You're never going to do that. Not any better. It's already being done. So finding your own voice is such an important part of it.
Well, yeah, and because I'm so new to it, like, I don't want to be stealing 1,000 people's different things, but I would like to be known for my own sort of thing. And realistically, like, there's always going to be someone out there that's better than you. So if you're just literally replicating something exactly as it is, someone's always going to do that better. So you may as well do your own thing and be the best at that.
Yeah.
The only thing you're ever going to be the best at is your own thing.
Right. And that's not something that just comes instantly. It comes from just working, and inevitably that style will develop. You'll find the way that you make marks and the way that you work, and it'll happen on its own.
Yeah, exactly. Like, every time I do a tattoo, I'm like, oh man, I really love the way this one petal looks. I'm going to do that to all my petals, and then I'll do that to all the petals in the next tattoo, and I'll be like, no, that's shit house. I should have just like maybe 2 tops. So the next one, you're always improving, right?
Right. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, I think, with younger artists coming in, and you've done a good job dodging it, but we want to identify, it seems like, with a style, because there are all these recognizable styles going on, whether it's this new school or neo-traditional or whatever, and people are like, oh, I want to identify myself with that, and they try to do it so early on that they haven't given themselves enough time to even really learn the technical side of how to put in a tattoo, much less how to have a style.
Yeah, well, I think it's like everything else in life, you should try every single thing twice. Because, if you try it once, the guy that did that might have fucked it up. So you should try it twice, because, you might find out that you personally aren't a watercolor fan, but you're really, really good at them. So do those. Yeah. But I sort of found my feet with realism, because it's what I like to draw. Like I tried new school, I tried old school, I tried trad, I even did a couple of watercolor tattoos, which I wish I could take back, because they're on the internet and I get asked for it every day. No.
Are they no good, or you just didn't enjoy doing it?
No, they were great, and that's the problem. I don't enjoy doing them, but I get asked for them every single day because some chick put it on Pinterest, and now it's out there.
See how many times Pinterest has come up in this series? We just decided that Pinterest is the devil for tattooing. It has turned. You just see the same handful of tattoos regurgitated as reference that your clients are bringing in over and over, and it's just like, oh, I know exactly what you're about to show me. You don't even have to show it to me.
Yeah, I really want this, like, it's like a flower, but it's exploding into birds, but it's not a flower, it's a dandelion. Oh my God, how did you know?
Like, I don't know, psychic.
Funnily enough.
So let's talk just for a minute about your actual process preparation for tattooing. You're working in realism, so I assume you're drawing from life or from photos, not from...
Yeah, I try and I will compile photographs. I'll use like an app on my iPad or whatever, and I will scour the internet, and I have literally tens of thousands of photos of flowers and butterflies and birds and animals and stuff like that. And when somebody says what they want, I'll go and find 4 or 5 of, say it's a bird and flowers, like I did yesterday. I'll find 4 or 5 of the specific bird, and then 5 or 6 flowers, and then a couple of images I like for background, and then I'll throw them all together on the app and delete layers and stuff like that. So I'll end up with like 6 or 7 layers that I've sort of selected each individual part, just so that I can get the composition correct, which is what I think a lot of people who are sort of getting into that kind of style don't really do enough of, because they'll just use a picture as it is, and there's no shape or contrast, or like the rule of 2/3 kind of thing. It's missing that, so it just sort of falls flat. You can't really use an image as it is. You've got to get that contrast in there.
Right, and also kind of drawing to the body. The chances of you finding an exact image that fits that space well is pretty slim.
Next to impossible.
Yeah. So from a color standpoint, so compositionally, you're building from reference photos and kind of just in an app like Photoshop or something. Yeah. From a color standpoint, what's your approach?
Basically, especially with my roses and stuff like that, I don't even look at the color of the rose when I'm looking for photos that I like and shape that I like. I will grab the photo and put it into a grayscale format, and then color it whatever color I want. If I'm trying to look at a red rose and then draw or tattoo a purple rose, my brain doesn't work like that. So I'll switch off the colors on that, and then just use the shadows and the highlights and the lowlights, and then ramp up that contrast and put that in my tattoo in whatever color I want.
Okay, and that's probably a big part of it, is that you are dropping it to grayscale and making sure that you're using the value scale.
The values are correct. Yeah.
And that's something we talked about with Russ in his interview on his color wheel. Is the thing that I found most valuable about that thing was that it uses a specific ink brand, but it shows you on a value scale where all of those sit. And sometimes I think people confuse high key colors. They think that they're darker or lighter than they actually are. So they may be the exact same gray, but they just have they may be complementary colors, but they're the exact same value. And it's easy to miss that. And if you're dropping it to grayscale and then pushing contrast and avoiding the color on the front end altogether, it probably helps you to get that effect that you're getting.
Yeah, for sure. And again, with the contrast too, like I can see what you're saying, like the warm gray versus a cool gray kind of thing.
Right.
I think is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Like I always try and do an absolute contrast in color with my background. Like I am working with realism things, so I can't be doing like a purple rose with a bright orange background, because that just wouldn't make sense.
Whoa. We just got a.
It's getting real.
It's getting a little. Yeah, it's getting a little loud. Our sound guy's gonna have a blast with this interview. He's sitting there with his headphones clamped to his head. Sorry guys, we are at a live event and we're right next to the main stage. So, if people want to find you, what's the best place? Best way to get for appointments?
Probably Instagram. My email address and everything's on there. So the best way is it's constantly got the most up-to-date information on it.
Okay.
So
great.
just Instagram @LizVenom.
@LizVenom, and we'll drop that in the show notes. We're gonna cut this thing a little bit short because of the noise. I'm sorry everybody. Thank you, Liz, for coming out. Nice to meet you.